Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. Really stretching the definition of crossover today. Imagine you wake up, the face in the mirror is someone completely different, but your name isn't Sam Beckett and there's no time travel involved. I'm taking issue with JLA, Foreign Bodies, written by Len Kaminsky with art by Val Semeiks, Prentice Rollins, and John Kalish on art, which sees some of DC's champions get all Freaky Friday'd. Let's see if this comic makes us want to turn the page, or turn our heads. The cover is nicely split between a grouchy and crouchy Superman over Gotham City covered in dark clouds, and Batman standing above sunny Metropolis with a fluttering U.S. flag. Turns out they unknowingly switched the trunks they wear on the outside of their costumes. We begin with a hooded figure who has a hollow projection of Earth hovering above his clawed hand. Mine. Mining for holograms. Why has no one ever thought of this brilliant business idea before? This is Cobra, with a K, leader of the cult of, well, the Cobra, with a C, for some reason. He boasts to various followers, and serpents, about how he's the chosen one, destined to lead humanity through the impending Dark Millennium, this having been printed in 1999. 2026 here, and let me emphasize the sarcasm when I say, doing a bang-up job, Snake Boy. But a nagging voice questions his godhood, the ghost of his brother, Jason, allegedly lingering thanks to a psychic bond the two shared. He suggests Cobra is only acting on programming that was impressed upon him since infancy. Lots of people are nostalgic for Windows 95, but you seriously need to upgrade, bro! An underling asks who the leader is talking to, but without permission to speak, which ticks the boss off. Have yourself destroyed! Oh no, he's gonna make him work retail!
You sinful beast!
The slave obeys while Cobra continues that soon the whole world will be just as subservient, as he intends to rule and met out punishment from on high. Specifically,
To the moon, Alice!
Since one could just hurl big ol' rocks at the Earth, striking with the force of a nuke without the fallout, he sees it as the ultimate strategic advantage. Constructing a functioning base there would be quite the task, so it'd be easier just to usurp the JLA's Watchtower. Currently, that's where the team is, observing footage of 6 cases of spontaneous mass destruction within the last 2 weeks. As Oracle informs them, people suddenly began causing havoc with no apparent pattern, and without any proven cause linked to chemical agents or outside influence. Have you cross-referenced with recent sports team losses? Or victories? The only consistency seems to be how each ensuing incident occurred in larger populations each time, like the violence that just now popped up in New York City. As the heroes get up and head for the teleporters, Superman says this. Anyone care to debate our options for courses of action? I didn't think so.
What an odd thing to say.
What was the point of that? If it was more to show how they're all on the same page, okay, but I think that would have been conveyed just fine by them, heading into action without that choice of dialogue. Anyway, they arrive in the middle of the latest incident, linked up telepathically by Martian Manhunter, and Oracle immediately reads them all having fight-or-flight responses, even Batman. She asks what's going on, but no one responds as a 2-page spread shows the heroes reacting to various threats. Instead of civilians running amok, some see an alien invasion, others spiking tendrils erupting from the ground, a kaiju, and robot Nazis. Oh, for the love of... Elon put Grok into one of his stupid Tesla bots, and now it really is Mecha Hitler. Not Zilla hits Jean with fire, his main vulnerability, prompting Kyle Rayner to construct a GL mech suit to defend him. Wonder Woman and Steel bust up the Mechano-Ratsies, something Jean Henry mentions he's had nightmares about. Aquaman is overwhelmed by Atlantean zombies calling him a pretender to the throne. Wally West becomes a puppet mocked by his predecessors. Soup sees Earth go kerblooey like Krypton. And Bats sees Joker confess to killing his parents.
You ever dance with the devil by the pale moonlight?
I can't tell if they're all hallucinating, or if we're witnessing the latest DCU reboot in progress, and a bunch of new writers are trying to cram in all their preferred half-baked retcons in 2 pages. Oracle ran archived footage of previous riots through a program which compares over 100 reference points of human physiology, and as several of the team begin realizing the absurdity of their visions, one common denominator is found: an old woman in a red cloak. Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother has turned evil. The old lady, called Psychosis, telepathically contacts Cobra for further instructions, as he sits in his cyclone chamber, monitoring the situation. He tells her to anticipate direct confrontation, about which he is spot on, as Manhunter has managed to shield the League's minds from further attacks and scanned Oracle's brain for an image of the perp. While the others deal with the real chaos, he goes to confront Psychosis, who sheds her cloak to reveal a techno bodysuit. She hits him with a psychic blast as her master presses a button on his fancy chair, giving us another 2-pager where Psychosis seems to explode with power, knocking the JLA back, along with blank first drafts. "Oh no, our outlines are separating from us! The ink is gonna spill out!" As civilians start returning to normal, wow, I was joking just now, but Jean is basically a puddle. Also, Raynor crash lands, Steel can't move, Flash is...
Good boy, little drooly.
Yeah, they ain't doing so hot, not even the evil psychic granny. And that's not Superman, it's Batman, who proves it by doing the dramatic cape pull like the animated series logo, which is a totally natural thing for someone to do in this situation. Later in the Watchtower, Plastic Man, Huntress, and literal angel Zariel all arrive to a shocking sight. Wouldn't saying great God in shock be using the Lord's name in vain, something he wouldn't do? Either that or it's some kind of call for divine help, as they see numerous Leaguers in sickbay, incapacitated and restrained, as the guy with the ears says they're not themselves. "I'm a white boy. I'm a skinny white boy. I'm a skinny white boy with a power ring."
Is that racist?
Yes.
A little bit.
No.
Everyone does what they can for the affected, be that treating wounds, tinkering with power suits, or using empathy and perspective to offset morphological shock. This is not at all what I expected from the second half of Scrubs' revival season. So, quick rundown. Kyle Rayner is in Martian Manhunter's body, Steel is in GL's body, Flash is in Steel's body, Jean is in Aquaman's body, Arthur himself is in Wonder Woman's body, Diana is in Psychosis' body, Bats is in Superman's body, and, well, that would just leave Clark in the cowl now, wouldn't it? Psychosis is in Flash's body, incoherent and suffering psychic feedback after an overload in the cybernetic suit meant to amplify her powers. It's suggested this may have been an accident from the strain mental powers can have on temporal lobes, but Superbat brushes that off, calling it a preemptive strike. He said the same thing when Burger King got his order wrong. Soon, at their iconic conference table, he further shuts down the idea that the swaps were random, given how premeditated this incident appears. "There'll be worse to come. Count on it." That's our Batman! In someone else's body. Kyle managed to take Jean's humanoid form, more or less, but not quite able to use his other powers, so they'll need to rely on communicators for now. A safety feature prevents John Henry from using the Green Lantern ring, and Arthur, well, he's got different problems. "What will I tell Mira?" "Never mind, I don't want to talk about it." "Oh, I know what you can tell her." Ah! Like a roach, that guy. Further examination showed Psychosis' suit was damaged with a remote detonator, and she ain't babbling nonsense, rather speaking a near-extinct dialect of Hindustani. But only enough to ask where the bathroom is. Her skin also has particulates from incense which contains snake venom, and coupled with her language, clues point to the cult of the Cobra. It just so happens Oracle has compiled a multimedia presentation about them for those not in the know. They're based on a prophecy of Kali Yuga, an age of global catastrophe that humankind will be led through by one of a pair of conjoined twins. When a pair of such children were born to vacationing Americans in New Delhi, the cult decided those were the ones they were looking for and took one after the surgical separation, convincing the parents that he had died. Cobra went on to become trained into who some call the world's deadliest man, U.S. intelligence enlisted his twin brother, Jason Burr, when they discovered they had a telepathic link, but Cobra eventually killed him. Jason just had to check that "Do you have psychic powers" box on the application form, didn't he? Immense wealth, top-notch tech, and unconditionally loyal followers are under the command of someone Bats considers a ruthless tactical genius, preferring intricately complex plans, some of which may have failed by design, so enemies would underestimate him. Tell that to investors of his failed car wash laundromat fusion business. A lot of people were left hung out to dry. Sometime later, the King of Atlantis is training to hone an Amazonian princess's body and fight with a changed center of gravity. Elsewhere, Superbat has decided Kyle, Diana, and Steel will stay on the Watchtower, 2 for safety, and the latter to get to work on switching everyone back. Oh, and Tall, Dark, and Not Quite Super is staying as well. Since calling him Bat Super would be silly, why not go with Man? He resents being bent just because he doesn't have powers, just as John Jones's brain accidentally stabs Arthur Curry's body with his giant hook.
Oh, I never thought I'd miss a hand so much.
This helps emphasize the point, so he agrees to stay behind, not having the Dark Knight's capacity to ignore pain. You don't ignore pain. You use it. For what? Motivation. I, for example, use it for my experimental thrash country band, the Howlin' Bat Boys. We've got a gig next month if anyone's interested. After Wally Steele gets a crash course on the armor he has to wear, and I guess not all of them know John Henry is black, they each get some spiffy new communicators. Plastic Man, who watched the training a couple pages back, is reveling in tough, sweaty babes in motion, and Huntress tells him to shut up, for like the 3rd time so far, and the book's not even half finished. They're called to the Hall of Justice, where Oracle briefs them on numerous simultaneous disasters and calls for help. A prison riot, an undersea habitat attacked by unknown marine life.
Come on, people! You know C-Lab is prone to massive explosions?
Flaming gallstones over Guam, and neo-Ratsies seizing a congressional annex, threatening to set off a cold fusion bomb unless Wyoming is granted sovereignty.
Yeah, they're always pissed, honey. They're Nazis. It's like it's their job.
It goes on from there, Superbat figuring this is Cobra trying to take advantage of their confused state, with no choice but for the League to respond. However, playing it smart, he sends out teams of 2 to deal with each problem, one unaffected team member with one that is affected, while he uses his newly acquired Kryptonian powers to deal with the rest. Don't worry about Guam. That's not Cobra, just the Under-Angel Aerosol, warming up for the upcoming End Times Fireworks Spectacular. It's kind of like the angel version of New Year's Rockin' Eve, except we do it after a while of mortals thinking they've pinpointed the end of days. Happens more often than you think. We briefly go to the Cyclone Chamber, where Baldy seems to wake up, saying he's Cobra, and that the chaos has only begun. Aquajan and Plaz, in the form of a fish, dive into the mid-Pacific, able to chat telepathically because, throwaway joke, Jean is overwhelmed being so submerged in water, something considered sacred on his homeworld. But enough of that, they have giant eel monsters to fight off to rescue that habitat. These are not natural creatures. I know, these practical effects are so cheap. Look, you can even see the strings. Likely genetically engineered, they don't respond to telepathic commands, but the Sub-Martianer may have another idea, while Plastic Man avoids getting eaten. Whatever it is, work fast! Mama O'Brien didn't raise her boy to grow up to be sushi! Well, not for lack of trying. As for the Aquaman in a Wonder Woman's body, he's thousands of miles above France, telling Zoriel how, at times, he had wanted to get closer to Diana, but this is ridiculous! It's a little odd to be admitting this now, but apparently folks feel compelled to confess around the angel. He even claims angels aren't immune to temptations of the flesh, so he understands. As far as Catholicism goes, angels can't be tempted, so this is either based on a different theology or creative license. But in any case, they've got a falling satellite to deal with. Wonder Curry redirects it from crashing into the Arc de Triomphe, then passes the vessel over to Zoriel for a holy slash of his flaming sword, destroying the threat. Amen!
Praise him!
His gender-challenged cohort gets hit by shrapnel, hitting the water and seeming to forget briefly that this body, attractive as it is, doesn't have gills. In Washington, Wally Steele makes a less than graceful landing on the Capitol building, irritating Huntress and alerting a pair of enemy guards.
Oh, nice. Why didn't you just phone ahead and warn them we were coming?
The line was busy. She disables one guard and starts pummeling the other for information, until Metal Flash pauses her interrogation. Huntress insists that they haven't got time to be nice with these jokers. Also, they're neo-Nazis, so that helps her argument if you ask me. Unfortunately, the supremacist idiot has time to activate the bomb. The vigilante will take out the other losers and evacuate the hostages, while Wally Steele disarms the bomb. Something he does not know how to do, so needs to learn quickly. I'd have thought at this point Wally, as the only Flash for so long, would have dealt with a bomb or two he had to disarm. I don't know, maybe he always just used super speed to chuck them somewhere so no one would be hurt. On the Watchtower, John Henry Lantern is tinkering with Psychosis' suit to eliminate the seizures it's causing, and give Diana's mind access to the body's mental abilities. But this causes a psychic burst that alarms Martian Raynor, who's still unaccustomed with telepathy to shut that kind of thing out. He's using all his willpower just to maintain his form, and that gets him thinking. Meanwhile, Pointy Ears McWrongbody is just staring out into space. Literally. Cable's out. Wi-Fi's down. Only board game they have is Chutes and Ladders. There's nothing to do up here! Because of his much greater experience with psionics, Jones has broadened the limits of Aquaman's telepathy, so that the eel creatures perceive the multi-armed plastic man as a much larger, much more threatening predator, causing the beasts to flee in terror. Wally Steele has found the cold fusion bomb, with minutes before detonation, so he calls Jesse James, aka the Trickster, who at this point is reformed, quickly giving a description of the device. Trickster tells him to listen carefully because he can't afford to panic now. Right, wait to panic until after the explosion. The Watchtower is bombarded with rocks that seem to just appear within the perihelion of their deflector screens, and no tracking data recorded by their long-range sensors. On top of that, teleporters and comms are offline. In the Cobra Cult lair, Baldy tries to warn them, but can't get access to the computer, until Jason's ghost gives him the passcode. A little strange, but hey, it ends up working anyway. Let's see if I can get someone's attention. Try logging onto Facebook and posting that the CG in the Avatar sequels looks like a PlayStation 1 video game. Throw in some hashtags and that'll get a kind of attention. In Gotham, Superbats has already dealt with the larger emergencies, now just waiting for word from the team. Oracle asks what it's like being Superman, and aside from the uneasy feeling of going maskless, there's a sense of exhilaration and danger, the temptation to rely more on superpowers rather than the skill and intellect Batman trained to hone. It risks eroding his judgment, and he'll actually be glad to be rid of them. I really like this critical introspection. It shows that Bruce is very aware of how easy it would be for him to be consumed by the kind of power at Clark's disposal, despite Bruce having good intentions. Even he knows that people are better off if he doesn't have any superpowers. Oracle loses connection to the Watchtower, confirming the detective's suspicions that these various alerts were a distraction. He hears something at ultra-high frequency and goes to check it out, telling Barbara to stay in contact with the others. Back at the Watchtower, Raynor begins to get the hang of shapeshifting, Diana tries to control her new abilities, and Green Steel discovers the base's systems have been sabotaged. All the while, Psychosis in Flash's body asks her master if she's served him well, and the man that appears to be the Dark Knight says she did. Very well indeed. That's right, Cobra has been in Batsy's body the whole time, while Clark has been in the cult leaders, and it's no surprise to the Man of Night when he busts into the base in response to that ultrasonic beacon. Not terribly smart of them to use their real names around the henchmen who ready their guns. To be fair, though, those guys probably aren't going to go around asking questions even if they did hear them say their first names. With their boss, stuff like that's liable to get them executed. Instead of Superbats dealing with them, Cobra Cal tells the minions that the hero is here to discuss terms of surrender, really laying on the sibilant S's, and orders them to prepare his teleporter. The act is intimidating enough that they dare not defy their Great One, leaving to carry out his commands. Meanwhile, the crew of the deep-sea habitat are safe and can reach the surface on their own, and Huntress has apparently succeeded in her task, so checks in with Wally Steele, who says he can't stop the bomb as it ticks down to 0.
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Turns out it's actually a dud sold to the terrorists by the trickster, who exclusively scams bad guys these days. But he decided to wait until the last 20 seconds before admitting that. Around that time, Arthur Princess has washed ashore, having experienced the sea's enmity from a surface dweller's perspective. This gets the Atlantean to consider that not just short-sighted greed led to the world's mistreatment of the oceans, but perhaps also fear of a realm practically alien to them. He goes on to wonder what he'll do if he remains trapped in this body. There's always a little sight called I wonder if there's a way to get a free exorcism done on this place. Cobra Bat is confronted by the other swapped Leaguers, who've caught on to his ploy and screwing around with the Watchtower thanks to Diana Kosis peeking inside his misplaced head. Unfortunately, the villain already rerouted his teleportation signal through the base's receiver, as his army begins transporting to the moon, advancing on them with the heroes powerless to stop them. Or maybe not so much, since Wendy also linked Kyle's mind to John Henry's, so the latter is effectively deputized to use the ring, encasing Cobra in energy bonds while they go to deal with the approaching army. And wow, that's a lot of people. It's gotta be a small nation there, and for a cult that tells you to off yourself over reasonable questions, that kinda strains credulity for me. Maybe I'm overthinking it, whatever. Kyle gets creative with shape-changing and suggests Steele do the same for the ring, thinking in terms of blueprints since he's an engineer. The result is a construct that looks like a war machine conceived of by Dr. Seuss. Oh, the cultists you'll crush. Telling her friends to fall back, Diana attempts a risky maneuver, using Psychosis's powers to make the Cobra soldiers realize the truth for their own sake, that they have been misled. They begin seeing their master laughing at their gullibility, expecting them to die for him, a vision that seems to reach some, but not all.
So many who simply do not wish to see the truth.
Those are the ones who follow the ironically named social media account created by Lex Luthor to spread disinformation, known as Justice League of TikTok. The resistant ones are committed to killing any dissenters, so John Henry sets up a construct to hold them off, but he's not quite used to his will being fuel, making the ring much more difficult to use than Kyle makes it look. Speaking of, he's having fun taking the forms of various fictional Martians, from Attacks to Marvin, but does get shaken from sensing his opponent's uneasy thoughts, so even though he's got the upper hand, he feels what it's like to lose. Fear, pain, and confusion from Cobra's troops like a bad smell I can't get out of my head. Ah, geez, whose anxiety cut one? The rest of the team arrive via Cobra's teleporter, noticing the cult leader has slithered out of his bonds. While those capable of fighting in a vacuum provide backup outside, anyone else will look for Cobra, with Superbat saying he'd like his body back in one piece, but since what he wants isn't the priority, adds that the enemy needs to be stopped by any means necessary. Huntress is already making excuses why it was necessary to kick Cobra in the crotch 7 times and draw a stupid mustache on him. The big brawl is decided pretty quickly, with the enemy either roundly defeated or retreating from the additional muscle. Inside the HQ, there's no sign of Bat Cobra, and intruder detection systems have been disabled. Soups goes to the hydroponic gardens, playing a hunch that kinda pays off when the villain gets the drop on him.
He starts monologuing.
Cobra figured that Batman's brain and his own body would have threatened his plans, what with all his clever deductive prowess, but is surprised the Kryptonian would realize Cobra couldn't pass up the theatricality of being the metaphorical snake in the garden. That's why he's in hydroponics. He was looking for a nudist couple to give fruit to. A practitioner of every known martial art, Cobra figures Soups doesn't know real combat or pain, getting him in a headlock. But Cal has plenty of experience from his past fights, slamming his foe back into a tree to break his grip. A few quick follow-up hits, and Cobra is down for the count, as the League shows up to see the victory, and just in time for Superman to give a corny speech about how the heroes aren't their powers, but their resolve, the power from their hearts, and knowing that they fight for what's good, just, and true.
Now I know.
and knowing is half the battle.
Later, Oracle is going over debriefings of the Leaguers from their various missions, then to a video of everyone getting put back in their proper bodies, between Cobra providing schematics, Diana using Psychosis' powers, and Steel creating specialized constructs. Everything works out fine, except Soups didn't think to check the cult leader for personal teleportation devices, so he pieces out. Though hey, you would think Batman would have thought of that too. And for some reason, the wheelchair-bound Barbara Gordon wonders if Cobra thought her too unimportant to be part of this whole body swap plan, or maybe he left her out intentionally so she would be so distracted by the prospect if she was part of it, able to walk, swim, even run at super speeds, while leaving one of her team as a paraplegic. Whatever the case, she curses him for making her even consider such a notion. I want to approach this delicately, so let me just ask, what are you talking about? Did Cobra even know about Oracle's existence before this, much less any secret identity? And how would he even involve her for a brain switch when it required the League to be physically in the field? What even is this scene? Alternatively, this is just Babs wrestling with what could have been of her own mind, maybe a little envious that she didn't get to switch around for a bit, but hating herself for it and needing to blame the bad guy. Where is this even coming from? There's no build-up whatsoever. But moving on, in his lair, Cobra is cursing the League, promising to kill them, yada yada, when his brother's ghost, or perhaps a secondary personality echoing his own dead conscience, says he fails because he refuses to understand others, let alone himself. And the comic ends with Cobra clenching his fist within the hologram Earth and hissing at the notion that until he learns, his reach will always exceed his grasp. That was JLA Foreign Bodies. Not too bad, but still a pretty mixed bag. It's an interesting enough concept, these otherwise capable, stalwart heroes needing to adjust to different states of being. Well, not all of them. Batman does most of his superheroing off-panel, so we don't get as good a look at how he deals with such immense power, just assuming everything went fine. How each of the others are eased into their new roles can feel hit or miss. I liked Zoriel counseling Jean, reminding him of a time when he spent months in a single form to help gain perspective, and Kyle using his artistic mind and willpower to harness Martian physiology is a very clever path for him. Aquaman's hurdles, as far as being in the opposite sex's body, is played a bit for laughs, but not overly so, nor maliciously. Part of his frustration seems rooted in teases earlier in the JLA title, when he was separated from Mira, and it was tinkered with that he and Wendy might end up an item, and perhaps that was the writer's reason for this particular swap. Nowadays, some readers, for better or for worse, would expect commentary of some kind, for example regarding transgender issues. Not an inherently bad idea, but how well that would be handled in a story that seems to be going more for fun superhero adventure is another matter. It could have easily fallen flat even with the best of intentions. Even that scene pontificating about how humanity's callousness for the ocean is partially caused by fear felt kind of out of place. The musings are understandable, since the guy who breathes underwater nearly drowned in someone else's body, but the introspection doesn't get expanded upon. Steel's biggest obstacle, I thought, wasn't really until he had to control the ring, which, while effective, was not a cakewalk. Diana's journey was more subdued, having to wait a bit, meditate, but seemed to use Psychosis' power well enough, if not expertly, though opinions may differ if she learned too quickly or not. And yes, the fact that some of the followers of Cobra were too in love with their blind devotion to a self-interested egomaniac is painfully relevant today. Feels like that goes without saying. Cobra would go on to say that sending his sycophants to murder Earth's greatest heroes and steal their base for him was a day of love. Flash operating Steel's armor wasn't bad. Kinda makes sense he'd have trouble when his brain can no longer think as fast as it used to. But why do you have to fly to DC? Couldn't they have just transported to the roof? And honestly, it feels like he plain lucked out that the Neo Nimrods bought a fake bomb from his buddy the Trickster.
How convenient.
I thought Cobra and Batman's body was a good twist, which they hint at right after Psychosis' attack. Notice the subtle hiss from Batman. For some, that might have been a huge giveaway, but even more covert is the way Superman tried to claim the swaps were an accident, then that they may have been random. He was trying to throw the world's greatest detective off the trail. or at least delay his conclusions to fulfill his plan. I get the logic of Cobra not wanting bats to muck around in his body, but if he had swapped himself with Superman, he could have taken out the League pretty easily within a few minutes. A grim alternative and much shorter story, but still. Cobra's act as Supes, being super polite, wanting everyone to be considerate of each other, really helped sell the squeaky clean image Big Blue is known for. Even Clark waking up in the serpent's den, as it were, with his dialogue did help the misdirect, even if it did feel a bit clunky. Though a major flaw in this overall plan was, while Cobra told his attendants not to disturb him in his chamber for any reason, he apparently didn't seem to mention that a superhero might be piloting his body. Didn't even think to have yourself restrained while you were unconscious, dude? Really makes you question the theory that he intends some of his plans to fail, and he's not just a total idiot. I enjoy clever wordplay, so tech dealing with psionics being called Psi-Clone Chamber and Cybernetics was pretty fun. As for the larger negatives, some of it is just odd questions it raises, like why there had to be incrementally worse riots leading up to New York City before the swap occurred. Did no heroes teamed up or otherwise intervene on the 6 previous violent incidents? Would it not have been enough to simply start with the Big Apple? I guess it gives an excuse for Oracle to use her skills to pinpoint the telepathic culprit, but I imagine you could have just had Jean sense her malevolence or something. I'm not sure what is up with Huntress here. Maybe the writer wasn't used to her and making her constantly angry was a way to make her seem tough, or I might be forgetting stuff from her tenure in the JLA. But she seemed unusually crabby. Sure, she had a point that no super speed when dealing with a bomb necessitated other expedient means, but repeatedly punching a guy seemed more tantrum than tactic. Her telling Plastic Man to shut up over and over again was probably meant as a running gag, but it didn't seem as funny as the creators may have intended, possibly due to how frequent it was in a short time. The art is well done, a lot like what you'd get in the JLA ongoing at the time. Good action scenes, some nice effects, and no serious problems, mistakes, or complaints there. Though Cobra is supposed to have this really unique beard, where the hairs on each side of his face look like snake fangs on his chin. I like the idea, but the inking hides it, so he ends up looking like Lex Luthor with a much meatier brow. And even though this is supposed to be a distance shot, and thus there's going to be less detail, these don't quite look like newborn faces. Maybe part of it is that they added too much hair. I don't think this was trying to be anything more than a superhero story, and that's okay, but at times it did seem like it wanted to make the characters feel things, make you think a little, though it didn't build up to or beyond a couple brief moments. All in all, it's an alright story that could have been more if it wanted to be, but that might have required at least another issue. It may not move mountains, but nor does this comic really hurt anything either. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.